What's up, guys? It's me, Krashy, here, talking about some Infinite Crisis on YouTube, and today I'm going to be doing episode 1 of, Krashy Bootcamp, or whatever I'll end up titling this, and the first and only submission I have, so guys, make sure you're sending me some gameplays and stuff for me to review, is going to be from Disc Brooklyn, or bip0lar. We're going to be watching him in a Superman game, and let's get started. I don't know the duration of this game, so we're just going to be watching it throughout the duration, and I'm going to try to do my best to give as much insight and his tips as much as possible. So the first thing I see is I'm going to check out his build, and he has 2 modded nil weapons with 1 health pot. Now, I haven't been able to see what those mods are. A part of me would assume that it's going to be credits off, and another part of me would assume maybe not, because he only has 1 health pot. So if he has them double recycling, that's mistake number 1. You don't need 2 recyclings. You would probably, if you are going to run double nil, and there's very few occasions where you'll run double nil. Seems like more of a Gotham Heights type of build. Then yeah, you would run 150 off of each if you are going to mod them. So the thing about double nil, let's go ahead and start off. So he's just camming out here, and whatever, a little bit of early pokes, no big deal. The thing about double nil is it's really strong in the early game. You can put a lot of poke down without, win a lot of early trades, but you're going to get outscaled mod-wise, that is, just because of the fact that you don't have late-game mods. So really, there's not much you can do about that. You're just not going to have late-game mods. Couple things that I saw just off the start. He's not using smart cast, and while I don't think it's a requirement, definitely some professional players and some players out there that will tell you that it's not a requirement. For me personally, I think that it's just a really useful thing to use. I don't know, it's really not much else I can say about that. I just feel like my response time's faster, and that's really all I can say. So it looks like right here he's just kind of trading into an A-dubs, and early on I think A-dubs probably wins these trades. It just seems like he's taking a little bit of unnecessary damage, and he needs to really just focus on getting some of those last hits. Maybe should have started with his W first on Superman. Would have given him a little bit of over minion poke, and now his jungler actually came in, and he wasn't really prepared or really in a good position. Had he actually been able to see a little bit better, I think he would have been in a better situation. So right off the start, the first thing I can say is that maybe just a little bit of camera work. You can see his camera's kind of lagging behind him a little bit there, and it hasn't been the first time. I've seen him do that a little bit. So camera work, it's got to be fluid. You have to not feel like you're just stuck in one spot and you're playing the game without moving your camera. Your camera has to move with you. If it requires you tapping spacebar to get your camera caught up and then move it forward, that's fine. I do that pretty often, but you really do need to control your camera work. So I think learning a better spell priority, I definitely think that level 1 W is going to be better. Even at level 2, you just really want that CC for an incoming gank, and it's just something that you really want to work on. So right now he's got minions dying on the front. He's really just focusing on this cannon minion, and he does not even get the last hit. So really got to focus getting that gold in the lane, just making sure you're last hitting. And he buys health pots at turret. So now health pots at turret don't actually fill up. While it's still not necessarily a terrible investment, don't think it's the best. So just putting a little bit of damage on her. And even still, just now, again, just not trying to be too critical or anything, but just now, his camera works a little funky, and it looks like he's not focusing the minion in the turret range that's getting targeted. So usually whenever you're last hitting, you really want to focus the minion that's taking the most damage. So I can see that minion right there is taking the most damage, and he was able to get the last hit with his W, which I wasn't actually expecting. So good usage of abilities to get your last hit there. With her coming in, control of the camera's a little bit off, but a decent trade, especially pushing her into the creep wave, still getting some more damage. See, the camera work's just got to be ahead of yourself there. What if you're running right into a trap? You just got to be able to see. But decent trade there. Actually, not a bad trade there at all. So, unfortunately, he hasn't been able to pick up a ton of gold. Now the gank coming in, he's moving his camera way ahead of his character, and while that's okay, you're not really paying attention to what's happening directly on you. So it was a full-on retreat. He definitely knew that it needed to happen. It actually looks like his camera sensitivity is too high for his comfortness. I don't know if that's a bold thing to say, but it really does look like his comfort level requires, his playstyle and his comfort level would require a lower sensitivity. So now here with the lane, I really don't think there's a reason to steal. He's probably going to die here. Just instinctively from what I could see, I would expect him to die here. And that's just because, for one, even if you do steal, you're not really going to get the camera out of it because all they have to do is stand on the pad, and two, you can't push that damage down, and it's not worth the death. So at this point, your enemy laner's probably about 500 gold ahead of you, and I want to see if you'll use your teleport here. If not, he may not need it, but again, I want to just see if that was something he might utilize. So I think he's just going to run there, which will be fine. He might miss a few minions, but to be honest, the farming from Superman versus A-dubs right now has been pretty poor. It's just like, if you look at his gold, he has had nothing. The first 5 minutes of the game, he's not been able to get any stronger at all. At this point, she might be working on her first tier coda. So again, I'm not sure what this move is about, but he's missing all the last hits on the front line, just killing the canyon, and I don't understand that move. So always want to last hit whatever's right in front of your tower. You need to get as much gold as you can. So throughout laning phase, it's going to be hard to give much more advice. I think the majority of the mistakes that are being made are going to be pretty repeated, but we'll watch and see the trades and see how we can give a little bit of pointers as well. So again, still just got to make sure you get those last hits, and if you don't, at least pick up the gold. So he realizes that's being taken. He's actually able to stop that, so that's good awareness there. It's not actually something I realized, but again, now he sees there's a skirmish going on. It seems like he wasn't really paying attention, but I think he's going to actually be able to get there. So good utilization of the E there since his W was on cooldown. And if I was him, I would be going around way sooner just in case, but looks like he's doing all right here. He might be able to get a slow off. And he does get a small slow pushback, and actually that might be a kill, but the camera work is just all over. Really have to improve the camera work a little bit just to be able to know what you can actually achieve. And I know we're watching this in 4:3 resolution. I don't know if he has a 4:3 monitor. That can actually restrict vision in my eyes. I could see how it would restrict vision. There's a lot of extra space on the screen, so I'm not going to say go out and buy a 16:9 monitor, but you definitely want to still try to utilize your vision a little bit better. And, so we'll see. So, in terms of build, we see all three mods now, Sai Scimitar being the first item he picks up. And while I'm not particularly a huge fan of Sai Scimitar on Superman, I can see its usage in terms of 2 power scalings on W and E, burst from the last tier, and then some decent attack damage on it as well. So I'm not going to go too far in depth about how you should or shouldn't be building Superman. Maybe after this item I will, but it's really just kind of a preference, especially with like an item like Sai Scimitar. It's hard to say. I think he probably could have E'd there and maybe gotten a Q in, maybe taken 1 tower hit, but the trade would have been really strong. And this push is just good for him. He's got 2 cannons. He's able to keep going, but the last hitting's just got to get a little bit better to make sure he's getting as much gold as possible. If there's any point in the video where I see him tab, hopefully I'll be able to see the gold advantage or disadvantage. But at the time being, this is all I have to work with, so. Looks like he's actually starting to get a little bit of lane control for himself. His jungler is up. I think it's hard to tell because there hasn't been a lot of action in top lane as of yet, especially with his own jungler. That's usually a little bit better to see since he may not have vision of the enemy jungler. But I think his map awareness, bip0lar's map awareness, might need to go up just a little bit to make sure he's paying attention and utilizing all the information that's available to him. The thing about like vision and just knowing where your own team and your potential enemies and enemy jungler are is it's information that you can get that could potentially help you out. So it's all about the information and how your brain, kind of like analytically decides what the next best move is with that information. So while I don't disagree with taking this camp, it's definitely a good move. You may want to do it at maybe a more opportunistic time, just to make sure you're getting all of the experience and gold out of your lane. I know there was probably like almost a full wave, or at least it looks like potentially half a wave that he missed. So again, just constantly got to stay farming. See a little bit of trade here. The camera works a little all over the place. I think, honestly, at this point, he could be winning trades a little harder, but his camera work is a little funky. She's going to have her ult. She'll probably just point-blank ultimate for the kill. She does. Honestly, I think had his camera work been a little bit better, or just held down space, then I don't know. I think he maybe would have been able to win that trade. The thing about A-dubs versus Superman is there's really no ult burst damage or no ult damage from the Superman at that kind of range. So the next thing I can think to say is that we're not seeing any teleport utilization. You're basically playing one power down. At this far into the game, you should either be using your teleport to gank another lane or using it to get back to your lane to make sure you're last hitting the best that you can. So it seems like at this point, if you're not going to be utilizing the teleport as much as you can or the best that you can, it would almost be better to just, I don't know, it would be better to just go on ahead and take like a shield. Again, focusing down the cannon minion, it just doesn't really make any sense. I think the only thing it would do is maybe slow down the waves push, but you want to get gold, and that's, slowing down the waves push isn't necessarily your goal, and you'll push your wave back by just pushing all of the minions. So, some more last hitting. It just seems like his gold velocity, the amount of gold that he's intaking is just so low. Like, I just don't... I really want to see the A-dubs' items at this point. Hopefully he'll click on her at some point pretty soon to see, like, what kind of gold she's been able to spend. We can kind of get an idea of where the gold is at. She should be up 2 kills on him. And in lane, that's going to be, I don't know, maybe impossible to trade at this point. So she's just trying to trade on him. He's doing a pretty good job. If he had his E there, I think he could have forced another tower shot. And he's going to all in, and it does look like she has some defensives. If he was able to use his E here, he could probably just live. But instead, his camera work is so focused on just trying to walk away, he didn't utilize his only form of escape that he had. So he could have easily had his camera on himself, eat her away, and walked out of that, in my opinion. But the camera work wasn't there. So now, in my eyes, 100% has to teleport. Okay, so he does use the teleport. Just to finally make it useful is how I see it. You just got to make some use out of those powers. And small skirmish, he may be looking, but he doesn't have his ult, so he can't really do anything with that. And again, it's fine to take the creeps, but I do think he's missing out on some lane farm. And that's just basically just wasting experience for your jungler at the expense of yourself, because your lane experience is going to walk away or break down and disappear. And this experience will be taken from jungle. So just make sure you're pushing your lane to a good spot. Like right here, you're going to lose a cannon and a bunch of other last hits. Like all those last hits are just wasted because you weren't in lane pretty much. So make sure you're getting all of the best out of the amount of gold that you can get in lane. So that way you can do the best to not just steal from your other teammates or something like that. Basically stealing that camp from your teammates and not getting the gold in your lane is a little bit insulting. So he little bit better camera work there to get it onto himself, but even still, like, I just feel like I'm watching the open space on the map. It's hard to see what's going on, and I think he's gonna die here, yeah, with a smited W. At this point in the game, it's really gonna be, I don't know, probably next to impossible to recover. It's just, you really can't do anything when you're 1-4 to pretty much only in A-dubs. It's, I don't know, it's pretty unfortunate. There's really not much else you can do. I mean, I haven't been really paying attention to how the rest of the lanes have been going, but I think at this point, and this is something I've told to J-Roar, and just something you just have to use a reference point, if you're not really able to win your lane, if there's really like not much else you can do, you got to try to find your own success. Maybe look for ganks in another lane, maybe try to utilize that teleport to gank bottom, pick up 2 kills, and then take a turret. You got to find the leverage elsewhere so you can get your teammates in a better scenario. One more thing I can talk about, I see his skill priority is Q and E, it looks like, and I definitely think that W should be a little bit higher on that list. The higher you put the W, the more damage you're going to get out of it, especially if you're building a Scythe Scimitar. You already have that power damage coming in a little bit. It also is going to it just does more damage, ultimately, than the Q. The Q is pretty good for auto-attack resetting and putting a little bit extra damage out or getting the last hits, but I think ultimately you're going to want to go WE passive QR is probably the priority I would pick. Depending on the build, the more health you're building in your build, I think you would go passive over Q. If you're going more of an attack damage or just straight damage build, then you would probably go Q over passive. So now a small convergence here, and that ult just feels so wasted to me. It was just a little too close in my opinion. Like, because if he does by chance get away, it's because you don't have your ultimate to really catch up to her. So maybe he can get his E off and execute, and he does. So that was a pretty good gank, other than the kind of a misuse of ultimate there. Again, his camera is just literally all over the place. I really feel like you need to lower down your sensitivity just to find a comfort level for yourself. You seem very, very uncomfortable utilizing this camera, and I know you come from Smite, so it might be a bit of a mixture of trying to get used to this top-down type mobile play or mobile style. But again, I just think your play style, the way I see it coming from you, it seems like you would do better with the lower sensitivity. I can't recommend you lock your camera because that's just not a good tip at all, but maybe tap spacebar from time to time. Try to reset your camera. It's a pretty useful tip, especially in team fights. If you lose yourself, it happens, man. Like, there's a lot of movement, a lot of particle effects and things going out, and if you lose your character, it might be best to just tap your spacebar, reset yourself, and I don't know, just try to find a better scenario for your character and be able to utilize your abilities the best you can. So that was a pretty good pick. I mean, it's definitely the necessary steps you got to start taking, and she's hard initiating on him, or you have him just right about half health. That's pretty crazy. So I see the enemy 80 carry is ferocious, so definitely looks like the rest of the team is not necessarily the best of standing, and that, that could change a game in itself. Unfortunately, I'm just doing the boot camps to see a specific player's point of view to give as much tips as I can, but just gotta see. So top is missing. I can see a bit of a skirmish coming in as he's coming in onto him, and he used his E forward and then escaped. It just, like, he was just not getting out of that. Regardless, that gank was gonna be too much damage. He wasn't gonna be able to get out of that. I think at this point he just needs to be trying to group and giving up that tier 1 turret to trying to get to his other teammates to try to make something happen. But you're not gonna be able to get much, to be honest. It's just rough. So the surrender vote coming out, it looked like maybe one person was even AFK. So that's my version of episode 1 of boot camp. Really, again, let me do a small recap. I'll try to do one of these at the end of every boot camp that I do. Make sure you're working on your last hitting. Focus the target or the target drone that's being killed the fastest. That's going to be the one that dies first. That's going to be the one you want to last hit. Make sure you work on your camera. Try maybe lowering the sensitivity, tapping spacebar every now and then maybe just potential build options. Double nil I definitely don't think is the strongest thing to run on Gotham Divided. If you did play it maybe more of a full game, you would see that you'd be basically missing a mod. So I definitely think that's something you can improve on, bip0lar. I appreciate your submission, guys. Be sure to message me on Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, YouTube with submissions or links to VODs or videos of your gameplay so I can do a bootcamp episode. I would really love to keep this series going. It's something I'm really interested in doing just to help out as much as I can, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.